Malavika Sharma has an interest in the area of research and on the game-based learning in higher education, test-taking strategies in reading comprehension, role play and games in the differentiated instruction class, a strategic and pedagogic approach for inclusive growth, reflective strategies and metacognition. She has received a grant of 4 lakhs rupees from the Indian Council of Social Science Research, New Delhi in June 2015 for the project, a study on the effectiveness of game-based learning for the undergraduate students of engineering. Madam has more than 27 years of experience in teaching and research. She is also an expert in English learning teaching practitioner. She also has her own YouTube channel where she uploads different reflective strategies and game-based learning videos. With this, I would like to invite Dr. Malavika ma'am to start her session on educational online games for learner engagement. Madam, welcome for the session.
Thank you, madam. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, madam, you are audible.
Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, participants. And thank you, Manju, madam, for the wonderful introduction. I would also take this opportunity to thank the principal of Pillai College of Engineering and of course our head of the Department of Applied Science, Mathematics and Humanities, Dr. Arun Pillai sir, for the constant motivation and support. And here I would also like to thank Dr. Yasmin Lukmani for being with us, for actually coming here in order to give me moral support. I hope I am able to meet all your expectations after such a wonderful session from Dr. Chumki Vishwas. I hope I'm able to keep you engrossed in my session. So with this, I would like to share my screen. So please give me the confirmation whether my screen is visible. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to minimize these windows. I don't want them because they could be quite disturbing. I'm not able to minimize them. Yeah, okay. Okay, so today I'll be sharing my views on games and activities for learner engagement. So first of all, I will talk about what is the meaning of learner engagement and how as teachers we can find out whether the learners are engaged in the teaching learning process. So with this, I would say that learner engagement is the measure of a potentially successful learning experience for everyone concerned. So here I would say that as teachers, we need to find out whether the learners, they are experiencing this learning experience, they're experiencing this successful learning experience. We need to find out that. So what we will do is we can find out on basis of monitoring their attendance. So usually we try to monitor the attendance in the online class. We do take attendance and we try to find out, if the students are regular. So we say that, yes, they are interested in the learning process, they are learning, and so therefore they are attending class. And also we tend to find out that whether they are interacting with the teacher. So interacting with the teacher in terms of clarifying the doubts, interacting in terms of, completing their assignments. Okay, so this is how, we tend to measure their learning experience. And we also, we are satisfied when we say that the learners are regular in attending the classes. And so therefore they are actually and being enriched, or they are learning, whatever the teacher is teaching. But this type of learner engagement does not actually help us in understanding whether the learners have actually acquired a certain information. They may not be able to acquire information. They might be just physically present in the class. Of course, we have a system called as that you need 75% attendance. So maybe it is because of that they are attending the classes. So actually the learning may not have taken place. So there is another way, of course, to find out whether the learners are engaged. And this is possible, when we actually involve the learners in cognitive, in cognition, or in cognitive involvement is can be ascertained by the teacher. Now, this cognitive involvement is possible when, of course, the teacher encourages the students to ask questions. Normally, when the students ask questions, we believe that the students has reflected on what the teacher has taught, that is the content the teacher has delivered. So this reflection actually helps them, to find out, to what extent they have understood the concept. So when they ask questions, the teacher is also very happy to answer the questions, because at least, the students are thinking about what has been shared with them. Now, but this, this activity or this aspect or this strategy, that helps in cognition, it is limited only to a particular set of students. It is not applicable to all, because most of the students would like to remain quiet, would not like to, for example, as we have seen in today's session, also in all the sessions, nobody likes to unmute themselves and come forward with their ideas. So as students also, many of the students are passive learners. They would not like to, share their ideas. They are hesitant. Okay, so this is not universally applicable to all the students. So therefore, we have to introduce some other activity, whereas we can involve all the students in the process of learning. So this we can do by engaging learners in meaningful activities. That is, when the learners are engaged in meaningful activities, then there is a process of thought process that goes on in the completion of the activity, as well as a thought process goes on in asking questions, in asking clarification from the teacher, and of course they also learn the concept. So, and then another way of trying to find out whether the learners are engaged, it is when we encourage the learners to go for self-assessment or self-improvement or self-evaluation. So most of the time what we find is the learners, they are not engaged in self-assessments. They merely, they complete a task and they hand it over to the teacher. So it is the teacher's duty to rectify the mistakes and also point out the mistakes. But if this is done by the learner themselves, some of the mistakes, they can easily rectify, they can easily try to modify, the way they have written a particular assignment, for example. And thus, in the process, they can learn better. They become more, independent learners, as well as they are, they have a better learning, of that particular aspect. So for today's presentation, I'll be talking about engaging learners in meaningful activities, and that is how we can enhance learner engagement in the class. So with this, I would like to take you to the next concept, that is the need for learner engagement. So before we talk about introducing engaging learners in meaningful activities, I would like to find out that why do we need to engage the learners? What is the necessity? The students are attending lectures, so that means they are already engaged. What is the need, for the teacher to design activities and then engage the learners? The need arises because in an online class, there are a lot of distractions that are taking place. The distractions could be in the form of the device. We use the device to log in an online class. The device itself could be a distraction for the learners. So for example, when the learner is attending the class, the distraction could be in the form of, like a message, that is sent by his or her friend or his or her relative. And that message, the learner could be very curious, to read the message and also to respond to the message. In the process, he is totally getting disconnected to what the teacher is teaching. So he's more interested in the message. So these distractions can be minimized if we design activities and we help the learners perform these activities. So minimizing distraction is one of the reasons why we need to keep the learner engaged. Another reason could be that in an online class, as teachers, we all know what we do. We tend to prepare our PowerPoint slides, and we present our PowerPoint slides, and we explain all the concepts to the learners. Now, what is happening in the process? The learners we do not know whether the learners are actually listening or they're involved in the learning process. So we assume that they are listening. We assume that since we have prepared the PowerPoint slides, so therefore, they have a better understanding of what we are trying to say. But most of the time it could happen that the learner could be really bored of the same thing that the teacher is doing again and again. So this boredom could be as a result, of course, of the fact that the way we speak, or the amount of words that we can speak in a particular period of time, in a particular, for maybe in a 1 minute, that is very less in comparison to the amount of words that the learners can listen, or the learners can grasp, or the learners can acquire. So this actually creates a gap. So the learners have ample free time with them, and with this free time, they do not know what to do. So therefore, they get they can start thinking of something else which is not related to the topic, or they can do something else. They can be engaged in some other activity which is not related again to what the teacher is teaching. So therefore, this boredom can be minimized if we engage the learners in meaningful activities. That is, we design activities specifically for them. And then from when we design these activities, what could be the outcome? The outcome could be that the performance of the learners, it improves. And then another factor is that it also allows the learner to explore their own understanding. So giving them the opportunity to find out to what extent they have learned. Okay, so they can take this opportunity to find out what is it that they have learned, how much they have learned, and what is the purpose of this learning. How will it help them in future, or is it going to help them, take this learning to some newer situations? All these questions could arise in the mind of the learners. So today, therefore, I'll be talking about, how to, use this, games and activities in the classroom in a meaningful way, so that we can involve all the learners in the learning process. So for this, I will talk about the structure of my presentation today. So first, I will be introducing games and activities, and then I will talk about the similarities between games and activities. And then I will also talk about the element of play as a determining factor in differentiating games and activities. And then I will talk about the relevance of games. And of course, the last, I will talk about how we can develop strategies when we are playing games and also achieve the learning outcomes. So let me start by talking about the games and activities. So broadly, I can say that games and activities fall into the category of task. Now, we all know that the performance of the learners depends upon various factors. Task is one of the factors. The way we design a task, that is one of the major factors that can affect the performance of the learners. So we have to design the task on the basis of maybe the level of the learners, and accordingly, we have to increase the complexity of the task. We also have to see to it that when we design the task, we have to, make it very clear that that there should be a structure of the task. So the task structure and the task design and the task complexity actually determines the performance of the learners, or it determines the active participation of the learners in the teaching learning process. Now, what is the meaning of task? How is it defined? So I'm going to take this definition by the renowned linguist, Dr. N.S. Prabhu. So according to N.S. Prabhu, task is an activity which gets learners to arrive at an outcome from given information through a process of thought, and which allows the teacher to control the process. So here I would like to draw your attention to the word outcome. So when we are designing tasks, we as teachers, we have to reflect on the task that we have designed. So are we helping the learners to achieve something after engaging in themselves in the task, after performing the task? Are they doing something, or are they achieving something? Are they actually able to arrive at a skill, or are they developing a skill? All these questions need to be asked when we are designing the task. So it is very important that we give our focus or change of focus to the outcome of the task. And then I will also like to draw your attention to that this outcome, it has to be reached, from the given information through a process of thought. So the learners have to think and then perform the task. They have to bring in the thought, so that while in the process of thinking, they understand what is the information that is given to them, and then on the basis of that, they perform. So the ability to understand the information, the ability to bring their own ideas into the information and then perform the activity, that is what determines the task. So according to this definition, N.S. Prabhu also came up with the nature of task. He calls this task as the meaning focused activities, and this meaning focused activities he divided into 3 categories, which is the information gap category, reasoning gap, and the opinion gap. So I'll be dealing with this. I'll talk about the information gap first. Information gap is when part of the information is given to the learners. For example, it could be an incomplete story that is given to the learners, or it could be an incomplete problem. So for a mathematical problem, for example, so the part of the information which is missing, the learners have to fill the gap by maybe researching or even communicating, interacting with the peers, and that is how they can arrive at a conclusion, or they can complete the missing gap. So, like in online teaching, it is not possible, for the learners to interact. Okay, so they can only interact with the computer. So what they can do is they can go for researching, they can go for trying to find out information online, and then, they can discuss with their peers what they have found online, and thus they can fill up the missing gap. So then comes the reasoning gap. Reasoning gap is when a particular information is given to the learners, and the learners have to acquire new information from the information that is already given to them. Now, this information, the new information that they acquire could be on the basis of the practical reasoning, or it could be on the basis of their, perception, or based on the different patterns, that they can see, from the certain patterns that they can observe in the new, from the given information, and they can draw conclusions about a new pattern, or they can develop a new pattern. So this is how it helps them, to come up with ideas. Then the opinion gap. Opinion gap is, when a particular information is given to them and the learners are asked to come forward with their own perspectives. It is very important that we try and encourage students to come up with their own perspectives, or to look at a particular topic or a particular, aspect, from different perspectives. This actually helps them, to think of something new or something different. Most of the time, what happens is, the learners are not able to think of something new or something different. So it becomes very difficult to them. So when we introduce activities that help them to think from different perspectives, or come up with different opinions, or come up with the different ideas, then obviously this can help them, in their research work. It can help them, to think out of the box ideas, to be different from others, to participate in group discussions, for example. And of course, do well in the interviews and give a very good presentations as well. So having said about this nature of task by N.S. Prabhu, all teachers, should make it a point to design tasks on the basis of this, 3 categories. So it is applicable to all subjects, not necessarily it is important only for, English subject. It is applicable for all, and everyone, should take the initiative of introducing activities or designing activities on the basis of these 3 categories. With this, I would like to go ahead with an activity. So I would like all of you to read the instructions. Before that, I would request Professor Dipti Nair Madam to kindly post the link of tumbling letters in the chat box. Dipti Madam, please post the link of tumbling letters in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So before you click on the link, please read the instructions. So the first instruction is you have to click on the link given in the chat box, and then you will be directed to a page wherein you have to enter your name and password. So you can enter any name. You can even enter a single alphabet. There is no problem. But when you're entering the password, you have to enter it as webinar, and it should be written in all capital letters. Write it as webinar in all capital letters, and that is the password, and then you can click join. So you will find the page with the game instructions. Read the instructions carefully and click on the start button. A question will be displayed. The correct answer will help you to move ahead with the next question. Now, when you're writing the answer, again, it is case sensitive. So please write it in all capital letters. In case you have any doubt regarding the instructions, regarding how to play the game or the activity, perform the activity, you can come back to this page again. I'll give you 2 minutes for this. Okay, I'll now move on to the next activity, or it is rather a game. The next game I would like to move on. So here I have instructions for the shooting game. So kindly, Dipti Madam, will you please post the link for the second game, that is a second activity, the shooting game. Hello, Dipti Madam.
Yes, ma'am, done.
Okay. So you have to click on the link given in the chat box. You will be directed to PowerPoint. You can see a pop-up on top indicating enable editing and enable content. Click OK and proceed further. Open the game in slideshow mode or the full screen mode and click the start button. You will see the spaceships moving. You need to shoot down the spaceships in 20 seconds to earn points. If you are unable to shoot the spaceships and there is still time, then click on the start button again to continue the game. After 20 seconds, the game will stop. You can see how many points you have scored.
By any chance?
I think I should share, no?
Yeah, at least they will be able to
just
see
a
it,
minute.
no? Yes.
Just a minute. Now, how do I share my screen?
Ma'am, do you need help?
No, it's okay. Yeah, got it, sir, got it.
Okay.
Actually, I had to stop sharing in order to open the game, no? Now everybody can see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah, okay. So I'm clicking on the full screen mode. Yeah. So the music starts. Then I click on start. See the spaceships. It did not happen. So again I click start. Again the spaceships will come. I have clicked one spaceship. So I have to answer this question.
Yes. It's fun, absolute fun. And my God, I mean, in clicking and hitting the ships was the most difficult part.
So a little bit of complexity should be included.
Yes. It's fantastic. It's working. It's absolutely working.
So then we have to select the right answer. Once we select the right answer, this is the answer, then I got it. Then again I click start. Okay. Now again I can see the spaceships. Again I got another question. So here again I have to find the correct answer. So if I click the correct answer, another spaceships. So again I click start. Okay, now it is time up. So I have scored 2 points. My time was over. So I could manage to hit 2 spaceships. It is working. Okay. It doesn't matter. The score actually doesn't matter. The fact that you are engaged in the activity. So you have got exposed to an activity and you have got exposed to a game. Now let us find out what could be the similarities between the game and the activity. So here I talk about the similarities. So the first similarity that I can think about is that the games are engaging. The game was engaging. And so I will also say that not only that the game was engaging, but even the activity was also engaging. Then the next similarity that I can think of is the game is designed to teach a skill. So similarly, I can say that in the activity also, the activity was designed to teach a skill. We'll find out what skill we learned later. But first of all, let us understand that both of them, they teach a skill. Then the third similarity is that the game was interactive. In the sense, you were interacting with the computer. You have the pop-up coming, you have the spaceships, okay? So you have the questions, okay? All these are the interactive way to keep the learners engaged. Similarly, the activity was also interactive. Now, in a physical classroom, you can interact with your friends, your peers, and you can arrive at an answer. You can have group activity or pair activity, but in an online class, since that is not possible, so therefore, we have to create games and activities whereby they can interact with the computer. Then the next similarity is inclusive. Now, most of the time, what happens in a physical classroom, that there are few students, that who respond to the teacher. Even in an online classroom, the few students who respond, the other students, they hesitate to respond, they hesitate to speak, they merely keep quiet, they're merely listening to what the teacher is saying, but they're not responding. So usually what happens, the teacher, every time the teacher asks a question, the question is directed to only these particular students who always respond. The other students are not taken into consideration at all. So in a way, you are trying not to give an opportunity to the students to answer. Maybe if the question is asked directly to the particular student, the student might answer. The student might take an effort to answer, but that is not happening in an online class. This I have experienced it personally myself, when I've seen, my son, attending online classes. I have observed that the teacher only selects a few of them, to give answers. To read a passage, for example, only a few students are selected. The other students are just merely neglected, or they're ignored. You can say they're neglected and ignored. Of course, if you tell the teacher will say, they have to enter into that discussion. They have to say that we want to answer. That is what the teacher will say. But what is happening is, this is the reality. So with game, everybody will play the game. Everybody loves playing game. With an activity, everybody will be involved in the activity. So we are including everybody, irrespective of their background, irrespective of their learning styles, whatever the learning styles are. We are not differentiating them in any way. So this is the similarity, that we are including everybody in the game, and this is also possible in the activity. Now, another similarity is when after playing the game, most of us, must have given a thought to it. That what is the purpose of the game? What am I doing after playing this game? What am I learning after playing this game? Am I learning something? Am I able to acquire a skill? So all these questions actually help the learners to reflect. So it encourages reflection. The games encourages reflection, as well as the activity also helps the learner to reflect upon what they have performed. And then comes another similarity, that is every game or every activity to have a specified learning outcome. And they should have a specified learning outcome. And this is equally possible with the activity also. They should have a specified learning outcome. Now, having understood the similarity between games and activities, let us find out what could be the differences in the game and activity. Now, first, from this picture, you can make out that the one side is tilted, towards the heavier side, or rather we can say that is the most preferred option for the teachers. Now here I would say that game comes on the side where the teachers do not opt for games in the classroom. Okay, I will deal also with this, why teachers do not opt for games in the classroom. Now, the difference is first. The difference is that games include playfulness. So there is an element of play, there is an element of fun when we design a game. And we have to take that into consideration when we are designing a game. Then the second thing is that games, there is a random selection. There is a randomness in games. For example, the spaceships that you saw, it was not numbered as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there was no numbering. And so you could select any spaceships. The main idea was only to hit the spaceship, the correct one, or the one that you want to hit. You may have identified that I want to hit this particular spaceship, but you land up hitting another spaceship. So therefore, this randomness actually differentiates an activity and a game. Then the third difference is that the level of competition. In a game, if we include competition, then automatically it becomes different from an activity. And of course, the choice. In a game, we have a choice. For example, when I said that even if the time is not over, you can click on the start button and you can resume the game again. You can play again. So now it will all depend upon the learners, whether you want to play or not. So if I don't want to play, I will not click on the start button. It is my choice. I don't want to play. Even if I've scored less, it doesn't matter. I don't want to play. But if I want to play, I will try and hit the start button again and again. So it is all up to me. It is my choice. Now, in an activity, what is the difference? The difference is that an activity is always, very serious. The element of play is not included in an activity. You must have seen that activity that I gave you to perform. There was no fun element was not there. And there was nothing fun, playfulness about it. It was interactive, but then it was not, there was no play element included in that activity. So it is a very serious activity. That means you have to complete it, if you want to move ahead. Then, of course, you're very focused because you want to, you learn something and you are focused in that, you want to complete it. And then, of course, activity you don't have, the choice element is not there. It is systematically, you have to move ahead. So question number 1, if you complete question number 1, you can move on to question number 2. After question 2, then question 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there's no randomness and there's no choice element. So you have to go ahead with that activity. Now, many teachers prefer activity, introduce activity in the classroom. So why do teachers prefer to introduce activity in the classroom? That is because they feel that games are distracting. Games can distract the learners. Already in an online class, the learners are distracted. They're using their mobile phones, they're using something else, they're sleeping or they're doing something else. They're not even listening to the teachers. And you cannot even identify who are the learners who are listening. Very difficult to identify. So already they're distracted. So by introducing games, it will be all the more difficult for the teacher to keep them engaged or to keep them, drawn to their content. So therefore, games are avoided by teachers. But later on in my slides ahead, I will tell you how games, are actually not distracting, or actually their games, can be designed in such a way that it does not, distract the learners. Okay. So activities are more preferred and games are still not preferred to be introduced by the teachers. So we'll keep that in mind and we'll move ahead. So here I would like to talk about play, fun, and work. So I will introduce the concept of play. I will talk about what is play. Now, play, according to all of us, is a mental state or mood. And this mental state of mood, we tend to lose track of time, track of place, and of course the reality of the moment. Now what happens is, most of the time as students, they are learners, they are all the time, they are involved in work. The teacher is giving them so much work. The teacher is giving them assignments. The teacher is asking them to read. The teacher is asking them to write reports. Okay, they're giving them deadlines, asking them to read articles, research articles. This all work. And so, in fact, after a certain period of time, the learners get fed up of this work. They get fed up of these submissions. They get fed up of this, deadlines, and they do not want to go ahead with it. So what it is that we can do in order to minimize this, okay, the burden on the learners. So we can say that when we introduce work, we should reduce, the consequence. So suppose if you do not submit your assignments by Wednesday, so you will get a lesser grade. That is what we all say. You will get a lesser grade if you do not submit your assignments by Wednesday. That is a consequence of not performing. So if we can reduce this consequence, there will be more involvement of the learners. And then second thing is that, rather than giving them authoritative directions that you need to write, complete your assignments in this manner. If you do not complete in this manner, you will not get marks. Okay, I'll give an example for my son. That when teachers, when they're evaluated, the teachers always say that I have already given the answers. Write these answers in a notebook. In the PDF format, the answers are already given in WhatsApp. You download that, you write the answers in a notebook, and then during the examination, you have to write in a similar manner. So what are we doing? Whatever the teacher has given, the student has to write in a similar manner. So we are not allowing them, to come up with new ideas. Okay, so when we give them authoritative directions, we are actually, making the learners, mere puppets. Okay, so as the puppets will tend to move and tend to work the way we want them to work. Okay, they will not have anything new, or they will not even try to think, what they are doing. They will just simply mechanically, they will just write the answers, memorize the answers, and produce them in the examination. Okay, so that is what is happening in the school level, in the grassroots level. That is what is happening. And so if we allow, or if we give them the opportunity to the learners, to explore things, okay, by not giving them authoritative directions, but by allowing them to giving them the freedom to explore things, then it could lead to a range of interpretations. And this is where, we have to, create our work or create our activities in such a way. Activities are work, we all know. Okay, we need to involve the learners. So we design activities. It is a work for them. But then if we could, try and, focus on this particular aspects, then definitely an activity will also become more interesting and more engrossing. Okay. So here I would say that signaling threat and consequence makes it less playful and potentially less fun. When we give threat and when we signal consequence, it makes it less playful. And obviously, there is less fun in the process. Now, let us go on to the next aspect. What does play involve? Play involves a lot of things. One of the major, the four major things that it involves is, number one is play involves choice. Play involves timelessness. Play involves randomness. And play involves focus. So it's not that, play involves only fun. Play involves choice. You have a choice to do this or to do that. There are many options available to you when you are playing a game. It is timeless. You can play it anytime. You can play it a number of times, and you can play it in a different, you can use the same game for different purpose. And of course, there is a randomness in the game. And when you are playing, you are also focused. The learner is concentrating. The learner is attentive. The learner is curious to know what it is that he's going to learn. And therefore, it indirectly helps him to remain focused in the activity. Then comes the next aspect, that is, why is play important? Play is important because it increases the participation and engagement of the learners. So if you want the learners to be engaged, we need to actually allow them to, have this, they should be enjoying, our lectures. They should be enjoying, what they're doing in the class. So we can only bring enjoyment when we introduce games. Okay, so let me explain to you that, game is such a way, or the fun element or the games, everybody loves to play game, whether it is the young people or it is the old people. Everybody enjoys playing game. So you don't need to motivate the learner separately. Okay, so that they can attend your class or they can, complete their assignments. But if you can do it in the form of games, they are already motivated, to perform. And this motivation to perform actually increases the participation and engagement of the learners. Now, this could be done in different ways. For example, you could do it in the form of a story. You could do it in the form of a song, for example, or you can do it in the form of role play. Okay, so you want to increase the participation, you can introduce role play. You can do it in many ways, and you can do it in the form of how I have done. Okay, so you can design games and you can do it in that manner also. And it motivates the learner to participate. As I told you a little while ago, it motivates the learner. So now, having said this, I will also go to the benefits of play now. So when we are playing, the learners bring ideas, what they want to do and with whom they want to play. So it is the learners who decide with whom they want to play. So in an online class, of course, you don't have the choice that whether they want to play with the computer or whether they want to play with their peers. But that also is possible. If they want to play with the peers, that is also possible. They can play with the peers. So the games can be designed in such a way where they have an option to select whether they want to play with the computer or they want to play with their peers. So nevertheless, they bring their own ideas. They bring different ideas each time they play a game. And then, therefore, we can say that the learner is focused when they're playing a game. The second benefit is the learners become more creative. It is said that when you play, you become more creative. It is a creative qualities or creative skill does not just come, when the teacher comes and says, I want you to be creative. So this is a task, you perform this task and you bring in your own ideas. No matter how many times we tell the students to do this, they will never, come up with new ideas. It's only when we give them something that interests them, that's something that motivates them, something that draws their attention, then they, try to tap the creative skills. So bring in new strategies. You can have different ways of playing a game and new strategies of playing a game. So whether you want to play it in this manner or whether you want to play it in that manner, it will all depend on what strategy you would like to implement in that particular game. And this implementation of strategy actually helps you in developing your creative skills. And this strategy can also be used in newer situations. So that is very important. So therefore, I would say that learners invent when they are playing games. And then learners develop different perspectives about things by pretending with games as if they are real. So this is what happens in when they're playing video games, the most popular games that are available in the market. They pretend as if they are the character. So when we introduce role play in the class, actually the students can pretend as if they are that particular character and they can continue playing. Then the learners, therefore, they're involved in the act of pretending. And then the process of play enables learning. Therefore, it requires active involvement. We want the learners to be actively involved in the learning process. So the process of play, it not only involves the learner, it also helps the learners to learn or acquire the skills. So I will say that learners actually focus on doing, because unless and until they're involved in the act of doing, it is not possible for the learners to acquire information. So the process is important, not the product. Okay, so having said this, the benefits of play, let us now move on to this question that comes to your mind, that do games actually create distractions, cause distractions? My answer is no, they don't cause distractions. Though many people will say that it is, yes, they cause distraction, but I would say that that does not cause distraction, because we are not playing games throughout the teaching period. 1 hour teaching period, the complete 1 hour, we are not introducing games or we are not playing games. So we are introducing games only maybe for 10 minutes in the class. So just to keep the learners engaged. Okay, and just to draw the attention of the learners and also help them to acquire a skill in the process. Maybe 10-15 minutes we can introduce a game, but the other time that is available to us, we can continue with the same method, of teaching, or maybe asking questions, of encouraging questions from the learners. In this manner, we can continue with the class. So it does not distract. In fact, it helps the learners become independent and self-determined, because they tend to play the game on their own. They tend to explore. So in fact, they are so quick, how to come up with, like, I'm sure if this spaceship games, I give it to my students. I've never tried this game. This is a game that I've created recently, so I've never tried this game with my students. But I'm sure if I give this game to the students, most of the students will score five points. I am not able to score 5 points myself, but the students can do it. They know how to, click on the spaceships, and even they will give me suggestion, madam, you do it like this. Okay, this will help you to score points. They will find out ways. So they become independent learners in the process. And then they increase the participants' intention to play the game again, and they also recommend it to someone else. That is very interesting. They recommend it to someone else, and then motivate learners to learn less popular subjects, the subjects that they are not interested in. For example, a subject like, I'll give my example of my son. My son is not interested in subjects like, for example, Sanskrit and Marathi and Hindi. Okay, the languages, he is not interested in these languages. He loves to learn English, but not these languages. So I'm sure if the teacher introduces, these subjects in the form of games, automatically they will be motivated to learn, and because these are the less popular subjects. And then you get students interested in the subject matter. So that is the most important aspect of the game. You get all the students interested in the subject matter. So the subject matter may be very dull. It might be very dry subject. There's nothing interesting about the subject. There's all theory. There's no practical. But then, when you introduce it, when you try to, give them games or activities, they will definitely, enjoy playing the game. It broadens the focus beyond just collecting points. So beyond just collective points, you have a wider focus, you have a wider spectrum where you can, explore your skills or explore your ideas. You can find out new ideas, you can try and implement new strategies and so on. And it helps to put students in a frame of mind that is conducive to learning. So I'm talking about the educational games, but it's not only limited to educational games. It is also, you can talk about broadly about the other entertainment games that are available in the market. The entertainment games, of course, they're not designed with a particular learning outcome, but nevertheless, when this entertainment games they can be introduced in the class in some other form, they definitely they motivate the learners, and they also they have a incidentally, they might teach you a skill of leadership, for example, skill might be taught. A skill of, problem solving skills might be taught to them, from those entertainment games. But when you're designing an educational game, we see to it that, we have a specific learning outcome. But in general, games actually helps the students to put them in a particular frame of mind that helps them in learning. And so this is very important. So I feel that games do not distract the learners. What is the relevance of games? Why do we need to introduce games in the class? Because we can develop the strategies of the learners, the tactics of the learners, and these strategies can be implemented in different situations, in other situations. For example, when I'm playing a game, if I've developed a strategy, without even realizing, I might, either I can do it consciously, I can use the strategy, for example, for reading a particular passage, or, speaking, I can use you can implement the strategy. Then, of course, I can encourage and motivate the learners. And of course, I can develop out-of-box ideas. And then I can also develop curiosity in the learners. And of course, I can give them the opportunity to reflect. So suppose if the learners did not win the game, so there is a competition. I did not win the game. I was not able to score marks. I got 0. I did not score marks. So what was the reason? Let me find out what was the strategy that I implemented. whether this strategy did not work. So do I need to improve on the strategy? If I improve on the strategy, will it work? So what kind of strategy can I implement? Okay, all these questions, I'm giving them an opportunity to reflect. And when they reflect, they learn more because they learn it on their own, and therefore they can become independent learners. Now, let me go to the next aspect that I'm introducing another game. Adipti Madam will post the link in the chat box for you. So this is a quiz game. So I would like all of you to click on the link given in the chat box. You will be directed to PowerPoint slide, download the game, and then you can see a pop-up again indicating enable editing and enable content. Do that, and then click on it, click on the slideshow mode, click on it and proceed further, and then go to the slideshow mode or the full screen mode, and then you can start playing the game. Click the play button to start playing. A question will be displayed. You need to write your answer in capital letters. A pop-up will indicate whether the answer is correct or wrong. Accordingly, you have to click the correct or wrong button. So if the pop-up says that your answer is wrong, click on the wrong button. Okay, if the answer is right, click on the correct button. This will take you to the next question. And then on completion, you'll be able to see the scoreboard. You can click on the Get Certificate button to collect your certificate.
Ma'am, the link is posted.
So I'll give you 5 minutes to play this game. Any difficulty with the game, please let me know, participants, if there is any difficulty. Quizzes are considered to be games, okay, but then it has to be game-like. So the playfulness element is missing over here, and it is more like a question answer. You know, one after the other, you have the questions and you have to write the answers, and that is how you move ahead. So it is more like an activity, but this activity can be converted to a game if we include the playfulness, if we include the element of playfulness, if we include the element of randomness, and we can change this activity into a game. So usually if you have come across, the quiz games, they are played, maybe with the buzzer round. So you have the buzzer round. So the different teams are there. So one who is able to press the buzzer first, okay, gets the opportunity to answer. Then it becomes playable. But this particular thing can also be introduced. This particular aspect can be introduced in this particular activity, and it can be transformed into a game. So now, what are the strategies? When we play games, the certain strategies that we use. Let us talk about the strategies. So first, I would like to talk about that random selection. Now, let us go back to the game that we played. That is the game of hitting the spaceship, the shooting game. So randomly, as I told you, I could select the spaceships. Then I can target one. Another strategy could be I could target one at a time. Okay, suppose if I have focused my attention only towards one spaceship, suppose the yellow color spaceships that I have focused on, I have targeted. So I will try and focus on that particular spaceship. I will not look at the others, and then I will in that process, unless and until I hit that spaceship, I will not move ahead. Okay, so that could be another strategy. Either randomly I can select, or the other strategy could be to focus on one particular spaceship. Then the other strategy could be that while hitting the spaceships, I will answer some of the questions, and some of the questions I will not answer. That would be another strategy. I could decide whether to answer all the questions or whether to answer only a few questions, so that I can get an idea of what is the skill that I am acquiring. And then I can move systematically also, move from one to the first I complete one, then I move on to the second, and then I move on to the third, and I complete the activity, okay, or I complete the game without, like missing out on any particular spaceship. Okay, so these are the different strategies that I can use, while playing games. And this strategy, I can definitely apply it in newer situations. For example, the strategy of random selection. This particular strategy I can take up, to an activity or to a task related on reading comprehension. So reading comprehension, suppose, we are given a time limit and we have to complete reading the passage and identify the theme of the passage. So I can, very quickly, randomly, I can read, the passage by focusing on certain important words. I need not read, every word that is written in the passage. I need not read every, sentence that is given in the passage. So randomly, I can just get an overview of the passage, and thereby I can get the main idea. I can understand what the writer is trying to communicate. Fairly, I can get an idea. I can use this. And then, when I'm talking about, moving systematically, also, this strategy can be, incorporated, when I'm writing. For example, I am involved in the act of writing a proposal, or I'm involved in the act of writing a report, or whatever I'm involved in writing activity. I can move systematically. I can go stepwise. So if I go stepwise, it will be much more, easier or much beneficial to me. So I can move, I can try and, logically arrange my ideas. I can systematically move stepwise, and this strategy can be used in that particular situation. So what I'm saying is that the strategy that we implement in games, those strategies can actually be taken to different situations, and we can use this strategy in order to complete the other tasks that could be given by the teacher. Then let us move on to the next aspect, that there is a subtle difference between games and activities. Okay, and that difference is because of the element of play. I would say the element of play actually differentiates a game and an activity. So when an activity becomes prescriptive, it becomes more like work. So if it is prescribed, it becomes it is more like work, and then the students are not interested if it is more like work. So the more prescribed the activity, the less play it becomes, play-like it becomes. So we have to see to it that, we have to minimize the prescriptive element, and we have to introduce the more fun element into that activity that would definitely change, the activity into a game. So with this, I would like to say that here games and activities have a purpose, and the purpose is to actually make the learners independent. So this is the purpose of games and activities. Both of them have the same purpose. They want to make the learners independent learners. They want learners to learn on their own. They want learners to acquire information on their own. And that is very important. And also it develops understanding, self-learning with reflection and self-assessment. So you tend to reflect upon whatever you have learned, and you actually move on towards self-assessment. That is done, naturally. You don't have to tell the learners that you should be, you should involve in self-assessment, or you should involve in self-reflection. Games and activities by themselves force the learners to reflect. And then I would also say that learning with games, we have certain learning outcomes. We tend to achieve certain learning outcomes. Now, I have done this activity first, and then I have done this game with you. You have played this game. So now I would like you to tell me what could be the learning outcome. Let us start with the learning outcome of the first activity. So what is the learning outcome of the first activity? So these are the learning outcomes is according to Bloom's taxonomy. These are the learning outcomes. So if any, all of you, I want you to write your answer in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and you can tell me the first activity that you were engaged in or you were involved in. What is it that you learned out of it? What is the learning outcome? If you're writing in the chat box, just let me know if you're writing in the chat box. Otherwise, you can also unmute yourself and you can communicate. What is the learning outcome that you are trying to achieve? Yes, anybody? Yes, will you please unmute yourself and tell me? It was a very simple activity. So can you tell me the learning outcome? What could be the learning outcome of this particular activity? Yes, will you please help me? Okay, have you written in the chat box? Let me see if anybody has written in the chat box. Applying the knowledge of spellings, okay, remembering, analyzing, okay. creating okay. 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 Yeah. Okay. Readiness. I'm creating interest, remembering. Okay. Okay. Here I would like to include, two important, like learning outcomes. Apart from the learning outcomes that we are all exposed to or we all know about Bloom's taxonomy, but here I would like to include two learning outcomes. And that is, one is identifying. In this particular activity, we are supposed to identify the word. So identifying is one, another learning outcome that I would like to include over here. Then I would also like to include the learning outcome of interpreting. So interpreting the question, interpreting the information given, and on the basis of that, identifying the information. So these are the two learning outcomes that I would like to add, for this particular activity. Apart from remembering, yes, remembering, but I don't see, in what way it is creating. So the creating part is a higher order skill, of course, but it is we are not tapping the higher order skill in this particular activity. We are tapping the other skills, which also needs to be kept in mind. We need to develop the skills also in students. So therefore, I would interpreting, of course, is a higher order skill, but identifying is a lower order skill. So both the skills are actually we are tapping over here. So what about this shooting game? Or what skills are we tapping? What is the learning outcome of the shooting game? If anybody has been able to click on the spaceships and you're able to answer the questions, can you tell me what is the learning outcome of the shooting game? Interest to create games. Okay, very good. Concentration. Yes. Can you specifically talk about the learning outcomes that is mentioned in Bloom's taxonomy and what I have included also? Evaluating, yes. Coordination, yes, very good. Motor skill development, yes, to engage all children in learning process, very good. Very good. Concentration, yes, very good. Understanding the question, yes, understanding, yes. Interpreting, understanding, yes, very good. Analyzing, yes, very good. Analyzing. Quickness in activity, okay. Remembering, yes, very good, very good. I'm really very happy with your responses. Promptness, enthusiasm, satisfaction, okay, you are satisfied also, yes. In involving, yes, very good. Okay, so when we are talking about learning outcomes, we have to specifically deal with these learning outcomes. Okay, so yes, we are understanding, we are trying to achieve that learning outcome. We are also able to analyze the information, so analytical skills develop. And of course, we are motivated to create games. That is, you're tapping the creativity of the learners. They can create games, and all these skills, they help us in actually developing our concepts better. And this analytical skills, if they develop, it can be used, while writing a piece of a paragraph or an essay. In speaking also, if we develop this analytical skills, it can be used in speaking also. In all aspects, it can be used. So by games, if we can develop the skills, we can definitely sharpen our skills. And it becomes therefore very important for us to understand that games are should be a part of the curriculum, or rather we should introduce games in order to make our class more enjoyable, make our class more interactive, and also make our class more inclusive. So with this, I would like to thank all of you, and if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer your questions. This is my mail ID, email ID. You can send a mail to me if you have any problems creating games, or if you want to introduce games, but you don't know which type of game you want to introduce. You can always write your queries to me. I can help you out. I can give you ideas. This is my cell phone number. and it is also my WhatsApp number. You can always send messages related to games, of course. And then I also have my YouTube channel. So you can click on my YouTube channel and you can find out, the games that I've already uploaded in my YouTube channel, the different games, the different educational games. So if any point of time, if you want, to get an idea of how to implement or how to use the games particularly in your subject, you can definitely, get back to me, or rather you can contact me and find out, in what way you can do it. So this is my YouTube channel. I'm just taking the screenshot of my YouTube channel. So you can go to the YouTube channel. The link will be provided to you. You can go to the link, the YouTube channel link, and you can, have a look at my games. And also you can also subscribe to my channel if you want, more notifications, immediate notifications. So with this, I would like to end my presentation. I will stop share. And if there are any questions, I will definitely answer your questions.